What's going on, everybody? GemMint here, and you guys did it. You finally bullied me enough to go and get a haircut, so I hope you're happy. But nah, today is the new comic book day reviews. It's the 5th Wednesday of November. It is the 30th, which means we had a very light week from Marvel, annuals from DC, but we had a good amount of indies from Image and Boom. We're going to go through this week's comics as spoiler-free as possible. I am going live on Whatnot today at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We're on the road to 10K followers. We're just 200 away, and once we reach that milestone, we are giving away a PlayStation 5 disc-based, brand new, 800 gig, so make sure to come follow me on there and come hang out tonight. We do have some more of our exclusive variant for Ninja Funk 1, which is a Super Mario Bros. 1 NES 8-bit homage, so come hang out. I'll have giveaways and other books to auction starting at $1. See you there. Let's jump into the Image books, and we're going to start with Flawed. We're on issue 3. It's by Brown, Prenzi, and Carey. And I kind of feel like it went off the rails here. Like, I had a good idea of what this story was going to be about. This therapist, her name is Gem, and she's kind of like a daredevil to where when she can't solve things during those therapy sessions, she goes out and gets justice on her own. Then issue 2 kind of played with the idea that there's like these bugs that are immortal people now, and that went off the rails. And now issue 3, I feel like didn't have anything to do with Gem. It kind of focused on the female character you see on the front. Kind of like a mercenary or something. It kind of lost me, to be honest. Then we're moving on to King Spawn issue 17 by Sean Lewis and Javier Fernandez. Great artwork here, and I love the opening panel. They did that kind of 3 different news reporters, but from the aspect of hell, reporting on the news from Earth down in hell. And Todd McFarlane always had like the different perspectives. Like you had like the reporter from the Fashion Channel, then you had like a left-leaning reporter, and then like a uber right-wing guy, like a conspiracy theorist. So they kind of played with that a little bit with panel 1. And this one is more of Al Simmons and Terry Fitzgerald working together. They want to free Wanda. However, it's going to come with a lot of consequences, still with the dead zones and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people are ready for Spawn to move forward from this storyline onto something else. I know I'm ready, but I really did dig this issue. Like I said, it had amazing artwork here, and this brutal fight with this new character, this huge kind of goat skull-faced character that has his arm ripped off. It was a whole crazy gory mess. Then we're on to the second issue of Lovesick. This is by Luana Vecchio, kind of like a Red Room type of story. This is the Domino, the dominatrix who live streams on the dark web and does crazy sadistic stuff to like these, what do you call them, like, I don't know, simps type of guys. More of that is what you get here. I dug it. Then we have a new number 1. It's Plush, and it's by Wagner, Hilliard, Renzi, and Dukeshire. I really dug this one. It's kind of trippy. It's kind of like these furries, or at least one of the friends is a furry and tries to get their other friend to go hang out and go to a party with them. They reluctantly go, and they witness some craziness out in the alleyway. As you can see on the cover here, it was like these people dressed up as furries eating somebody alive. And then there's a whole other backstory to this character. He's drugged at this party, ends up getting arrested, and then we find out there's this whole thing with he's engaged to the sheriff's daughter, but the sheriff's daughter is cheating on him with the deputy, and she got pregnant by him, but it's almost like a shotgun wedding type of thing. They had a lot going on with the backstory, but I liked it. It was like a weird enough, interesting story that got me hooked in. Had good artwork as well. I'll check out Plush too. Then we're on to Stillwater issue 16, Chip Zdarsky, Ramon K. Perez, and Mike Spicer. Now, I couldn't for the life of me remember the big cliffhanger at the end of issue 15. I think it was just we found out who was responsible for the curse of Stillwater, if that's what you want to call it, that anyone who's living within those borders is immortal. So we get more of the backstory of that character, how it happened, and like what it really is all about. We know it has to do with the boundaries, but this goes back into times of, I guess, Civil War, with making those actual maps and bringing a supernatural element into the story, which it's always been like a magical aspect, but now it's really confirmed what it actually is. So it's a pretty interesting issue. I dig Stillwater. Moving on to Boom Studios, we have The Approach, issue number 2. This is by Han, Hurley, Hervas, Caballero, and Wadelli. So it's kind of not much has happened since the first issue. We know there's this snowstorm. People are kind of hunkered down in this airport, and something came along this ship that's been missing for, 27 years, possessing the pilot and turning into this monster. Basically, in this issue, it's like an abominable snowman type of monster that's killing people, and now they gotta hunt it down because they're trapped in the airport with them. It's giving heavy Langolier vibes. If you guys have ever seen that made-for-TV movie by Stephen King, I've referenced it multiple times throughout the history of this channel. Like I said, not much happened. I mean, we get a little bit more action, a little bit more suspense with this monster, but it was interesting enough. Issue 2 of Briar is here. This is by Christopher Cantwell, Herman Garcia, and Matthias Lopez. So I dug issue 1. This is like that what if Cinderella type of universe. It's dark and gritty and gnarly, and it's like 100 years in the future from when the story of Cinderella as we know it happened. But with this twist, she was never kissed by Prince Charming. He actually just married her, never woke her up, took her family's riches and ran the castle into the ground. Now it's kind of bringing in the fairy godmothers, and since it's that darker world, they're more of like monsters and fairies. There's a 7th fairy that nobody speaks of. So I like the direction that they took it into. If you want a crazy twist on a classic story, you might want to check out Briar. The last one from Boom Studios is another issue number 2, Damn Them All, Simon Spurrier, Charlie Adlard, and Sophie Dodgson. So if you guys caught my review when I talked about issue 1, I liked the premise, but I felt like the story was very dense. This one is way more dense, and I feel like they added a lot of unnecessary things to this issue, man. There was this whole school shooter story in the beginning that doesn't really seem to tie in with anything. And then towards the 3rd act, they introduce us to this character who reminded me of like the architect from The Matrix. I got a headache reading this book. I had to stop reading it. I couldn't even get to the end. This guy kept talking in like this kind of uber sophisticated language, and I was just like so uninterested. It was so dense and so boring. I liked the aspect of like these summons, that they're able to summon these deities or whatever you want to call them from another dimension, from hell or wherever. And they're kind of like, they're genies in a bottle that have to do what they say. And they touch on that a little bit. And I like the fact that they kind of touch on when people see these things in person, like they go crazy, their eyeballs bulge out of their head, their brains can't comprehend what they're looking at, which feels like it was borrowed from Doomsday Clock on how people reacted to seeing the alien invasion at the end of Watchmen, which is kind of what turned Reggie into Rorschach and made him go a little bit crazy. I just went down a rabbit hole. I like that aspect, but damn, this is a dense book. Then we're moving on to Marvel Comics, y'all. Planet Hulk World Baker issue 1. It's the return 1,000 years in the making by Pac, Garcia, Smith, Backus, and Sotomayor. Also has a backup story featuring Scar, son of Hulk. I thought it was lackluster for this big return to the Planet Hulk storyline. I wasn't really digging it. We're in the future. We have like these Hulks that are on the run. They're kind of like the black sheep of the Sakaar planet, if you will. And I guess they're ancestors of Bruce Banner. To be honest, I had a hard time trying to follow what the actual storyline was here. And then the Scar backup story was kind of him just trying to find his place in the world. And he seems to find it with his love for saving monsters. So he's going to be like this monster hunting savior kind of guy. Nothing to write home about. Strange is here with issue 8, Jed MacKay, Ferreira, Landini, and Tartaglia. I've been championing this story and this run since the beginning. This is the worst issue that this run has produced so far. And I think all 7 issues were strong. 8 was like totally not strong. And it's funny how once they bring back Doctor Strange, it's no longer good. Clea was holding this book together, and Doctor Strange is back. They're going into the past now. I just wasn't digging it. I feel like they should have kept this a Clea book, or from this issue, I couldn't tell. And the last one from Marvel, like I said, it was a light week. I mean, they had other issues, but from what I read, Avengers Assemble Alpha, issue number 1. So this is Jason Aaron. I can't see the creative team because this is a wraparound cover, dope cover. And I like this story. This is from that, New Comic Book Day book that I was like, I want to read more about this Avengers. That's what you're getting here. You're getting a team of Avengers with a Savage Land or prehistoric Avengers, and they're going up against like this futuristic Masters of Doom. Hold on, let me give you the cast real quick. Well, now I can see the back of the issue. So Jason Aaron, Hitch, Curry, and Sinclair. And sorry, sometimes it's hard to keep all these stories in my head together. So we've got the Avenger Prime, and then the Avengers team of Cap, Starbrand, Valkyrie, Iron Man, Thor, Phoenix, Namor, Captain Marvel, and Nighthawk. The prehistoric Avengers, you have a Caveman Hulk, who is the Starbrand. He's a red Hulk. You got Agamotto, as in the Eyes of Agamotto, which plays a part in this story. You've got Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, the original Iron Fist, Odin, and the original Fist of Khonshu, Moon Knight. You also got the multiversal Avengers with Captain Carter, Longbow, Moon Knight, Ant-Man, and the All-Rider. And then you have the multiversal Masters of Evil. So it's Doom Supreme, King Killmonger, Black Skull, which is the Red Skull Venom, Dark Phoenix, the Berserker, Young Thanos, and Ghost Goblin. It's essentially a huge battle royale. Like what you see on the cover is what you get on the interiors. Huge Clash of the Titans, and kind of interesting little subplots as well. The only problem is it continues in the pages of like Avengers, which I'm not reading, like with what, issue 60 something, and some other Avengers title that I'm not reading. I would have rather this have spun off into its own thing, but what are you going to do? And before we jump into the DC books, which includes the Gem of the Week, this is the last day where you can sign up for the Comic Tom Mystery Mail Call for the month of November. He has an exclusive for Ninja Funk issue 1 done by David Mack, who did the cover A. Also an exclusive for Demon Wars Shield of Justice #1, which is a Peach Momoko book. She did an exclusive for this box. You also get comics at random. There is an Amazing Spider-Man 20 first appearance of Scorpion that will be in one of these boxes. Plus you have a kid's comic from Scoot with a cover homage by Nate Made It. Go to ComicTom101.com right now and sign up for the mystery mail call. All right, guys, on to DC. So we have the Justice Society of America issue #1. Jeff Johns, he's joined by Janine and Belair. Jeff Johns is doing everything he can to bring the Golden Age heroes into the forefront. We had the one-shot recently. We teased this at the end of Doomsday Clock, and this is essentially the daughter of Catwoman and Batman in the future. He's been murdered 8 years prior, and now Dr. Fate has been murdered as well. So we have, is it Helena Wayne, who is the daughter? Yep, Helena Wayne. And she's recruiting a new JSA, which includes like Solomon Grundy as her right-hand man. But then it has villains as well, like the son of the Harlequin and others. And we find out who this assassin is at the end, who basically runs through this JSA with ease. So very interesting, but we're playing with time traveling, which I feel is very cheap in comics. But we'll see where it goes. It's Jeff Johns, but it wasn't the strongest issue. Another new #1, we got Jaime Reyes as the Blue Beetle. It's issue 1 out of a 6-issue miniseries by Trujillo, Gutierrez, and Quintana. This takes place in El Paso, which is funny. That's where we just moved from. So the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, what street is he on? He graduates high school in this issue. Was that Pebble Hills High School? Like, which high school was it? So it's a fun issue. The Blue Beetle, his powers are out of whack. It's kind of like Spider-Man No More a little bit. He's having trouble changing back and forth into Blue Beetle because he is one with the Scarab that gives him his powers. And there is something called the Reach that seems to be transmitting a message coming back. And it's kind of like the big cliffhanger at the end of the issue. I don't want to get into it. So a new villain in the Blue Beetle world shows up is what it looks like. So I thought it was good enough. I'll read issue 2. And then we have some annuals. Detective Comics Annual for 2022 by Ron V. He's joined by Mitten, Albuquerque, Sherman, and Low Ridge. Man, I think this might be my last issue of Detective Comics. The run hasn't been interesting, and the annual was so boring, man. I mean, I love Ron V. He does his storytelling thing, and I feel like he immersed himself in this world on this issue, but it's like, dude, it's not even a Batman story, dude. It's like going into the past, playing with this notion that cities can remember what they were. Then we're getting a flashback into the past during like the 1800s, and I don't know. It was super boring, I thought, and I couldn't wait till the issue was over. And like I said, I don't think I'm going to read Detective anymore. I think I'm going to drop it. Superman Kal-El Returns issue 1 is here, and this is a cool Batman vs. Spawn cover for this variant, but it's Superman and Spawn. Has that ever been done on a cover? I don't know. So this is not an annual, but it's basically an annual. You got Mark Waid, you got Grace, Wolfman, Segura, Henry, Haspiel, Herbert, Osio, Mayolo, Molahill, Guimarães, and Low Ridge. So it's basically a couple of short stories interacting with Clark Kent, or showing the interaction between Clark Kent and others. What's it like when he reunites with Batman? What's it like when he reunites with the Justice League, or when he reunites with his son and with Lois? So you had different art styles. Some were good, some were not. And overall, it doesn't even matter. This stuff takes place before Justice League 75, the death of the Justice League. I think you could easily skip this issue. And on to the Gem of the Week. We're back to DC Comics for the Gem, and I gotta give it to Nightwing, the 2022 annual. Now, mainly for the first half of this book, which is the Tom Taylor story, Christophe Pacat, Panacea, Miranda, Ferreira, and Lucas are all on this book, but what you get here is the origin of the Heartless Man. This villain that's been teased ever since, what, issue 1 of, or the first issue that Tom Taylor jumped on? I feel like it was issue 78. This was such a good, interesting, well-told origin story for this villain. I loved it. I didn't realize that's where they were going until I was like, oh, I see what you're going to do. Not to give too much, but basically you have this guy who was, on a cruise with somebody telling them about a new butler job they were getting. That guy essentially kills the would-be butler, takes his identity, and goes to this family. His whole plan was to infiltrate, get himself in good graces with the family, get into their will so he can kill them. But what he didn't expect is this little sadistic serial killer in the making of a son that he falls in love with and takes him on a different path. That's all I'm going to give you for this origin story. I thought it was amazing. The backup story, you had just one with Dick Grayson's dog. It was kind of whack. And then you had a great story with Nightwing training Jonathan Kent, kind of tapping into how he was trained by Batman to make him a better fighter, because Jonathan Kent accidentally hurt somebody in one of his battles in one of the most recent issues of his ongoing. I thought it was a great, solid issue. I mean, it's a dog story, so you can't really fault that for the middle story. The 3 stories were strong. Definitely gets my gem of the week. It was no contest. And those are this week's comics. Let me know what you're looking forward to the most this week. If you've already read them as you're watching this, what was your gem of the week? Hopefully I catch you guys on Whatnot later today. That's 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't signed up yet, use the link in the description. It'll get you a $10 credit that you can use towards your first purchase on Whatnot. Doesn't have to be on my stream, but definitely show up because we got giveaways, dollar star auctions, and we have our own exclusives. Thanks for watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.